tell us how Mona Sharma, celebrity, coach, nutritionist, wellness healer, serial entrepreneur, how did she get to where she is today? Let's go on that journey.
First of all, I love that word reinvention. I've never really applied it to myself, but gosh, it just feels so good. On this journey of reinvention, I feel like I'm such a late bloomer. I don't think I've bloomed yet.
You think you're a late bloomer, really?
Yeah. So to tell you my story, my life looked very different before the world of wellness. So I used to work as a national sales trainer for big cosmetic brands like Christian Dior and Tom Ford Beauty and Bobbi Brown and stuff like that. Not being a dentist or an Indian to an Indian father, I had to hustle to make it to the top of a corporation, and this just seemed like the most fun. And it was fun for a certain period of time, but at the end of the day, it was a typical sales job. Traveling a lot, all about the numbers, waking up in hotel rooms, not knowing what city I was in, eating, drinking, smoking, women on laxatives to counteract the food things, like all these bad behaviors. And once the excitement kind of faded, I just realized there's a lot of anxiety and stress, like crippling anxiety. But I think that stemmed from living inauthentically and out of alignment with my purpose.
And let me ask you a question about the anxiety, because did you know that it was anxiety at the time?
Not at all.
And when did you actually start to recognize that, oh, actually the thing that I'm feeling is actually anxious thoughts or being anxious in my body?
So since I was 18 years old, I'd suffered from heart palpitations. And doctors, they never asked about my lifestyle, my happiness, my sense of purpose, or relationships, what was happening emotionally in my life. It was all, what are you eating? It's probably biological. So I really kind of swallowed that pill. And I was put on beta blockers for my heart palpitations.
Early on.
As
a teenager?
As a teenager, yeah, moving into my early 20s. Gained a lot of weight on those. I was about 40 pounds heavier.
Stop.
Yeah. Doctors then were like, you know what, Mona, we'll put you in for surgery, 2 ablations. So the first surgery, they went in, you're awake for the entire thing. It's heart surgery.
Heart surgery.
You're awake watching your heart on a massive screen, cords and wires going everywhere. They're injecting you with adrenaline and different stimulants to induce these palpitations that I knew would only happen if I was standing or moving around or bending down to get something. Sure enough, they ended up doing 2 ablations in that surgery, but the next morning in the hospital, I woke up with the palpitations again.
Oh my gosh.
So at that point, I was in my early 20s working corporate, and I just thought, well, screw it, this is me. I have a heart condition. I labeled myself as somebody who is sick, having a heart condition.
So you said, I have a heart condition at 20.
Yeah, I had to declare it. Now I had to check the box, having heart surgeries and stuff like that. So I really kind of adopted this mentality that I was sick. When I was 24, I had my second surgery, and same procedure. We were in there for hours. The doctors I'll never forget this. They asked, Mona, God, why are you crying? I was crying for hours. It's like, I don't know, I'm looking at my heart. I'm 24 years old. You guys are trying to find this thing to do the ablation. I'm getting off of medication. Like, what has happened to my life? Mm-hmm. And the doctor, they finally found where this extra electrical node is what they call it. And they said, well, you know what? If we go through with this ablation, you might have to wear a pacemaker for the rest of your life.
My goodness.
And in that moment, it was like just one of those moments where the world stopped, and I asked myself, what the hell am I doing here? This is not my life. This is not my story. This is not my purpose. And I knew that I needed to heal. And with the support of my partner, who's now my husband, I threw in the towel in the corporate world. The irony of all of this is that I grew up living summers on an ashram. So for those of you who don't know, ashrams are spiritual centers where you go and you practice yoga, meditation, breath work. You're living in community. You're connected to nature every single day. You're connected to finding your purpose. You're shutting down the noise in your mind and finding equilibrium and your sense of value as a unique human being. So I had that as an upbringing. Clearly, I had to throw that into the garbage in my 20s and go and party and live fashion.
Live fashion, but yet on the weekends or in the summers, you would actually go back to this ashram.
Yeah.
And was this sparked by your dad? Because your dad's Indian.
This was sparked by my dad. So my dad was Indian, but it was actually my mom, who's Danish, who found the ashram. So It was this kind of unique synergy where she needed it because she's only ever suffered from debilitating rheumatoid arthritis. I've only ever known my mom to be crippled. and my father for the sense of spirituality. Both of them were immigrants, and he had a big disconnection from Hinduism and a lot of spiritual practices. So it was living at the ashram that I saw the power of food and nature and mindfulness and yoga and meditation, one on my mom's disease, but two on my father's spirit and the sense of joy that I gave him.
Wow.
So being introduced to that as a child, clearly there was imprinting that happened. But my dad was waking me up, tapping me on the shoulder at 5 o'clock in the morning to go and meditate. So it also felt like torture as a little kid. When all these other kids were going to camp and doing fun things, I had to go and sit in satsang with my eyes closed for 30 minutes and not move. So
Oh my goodness.
the irony is that everything that brought me to my own healing journey was going back to the ashram. Quit the world, quit the corporate world. Became a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher, not knowing that I was going to use it professionally.
And let me stop you right there. So at what point of that, when you quit your job and you're then thinking, what am I going to do with my life? Like, how did the inspiration to go to yoga teacher training, how did that come to
The sensation that it felt like was just that I had to go home. So typically growing up, my parents ended up divorcing, but through the stressors growing up, my instinct was always to run. I had to go travel, take off. I had traveled so many places, but to run away from my problems. And for me, the feeling of going to the ashram felt like I was going home, or to this idea of like source energy and healing. And I knew that I felt good there. And this center, it was in the Bahamas. I was on the ocean. I lived there for 2 months. I was given a spiritual name. And so I feel like that ultimately just brought me back to who I was, this version of myself that I kind of veered off track. I was trying to pursue success and glamour and what other people thought that I should be doing, and chasing the dollar sign. I made the 6 figures and did all the things, but it wasn't enough. Like, I was really suffering. And internally, sure enough, it wasn't until I went back to my roots and started teaching yoga that my father even said that he was proud of me. It's wild.
So
right?
it wasn't all the accolades. It wasn't all the things that you like had to check off the boxes.
It was me honoring my spirit.
See you next time at the Brave Table.